Let's bring in our next guest, Rick. It's Andrew Polsky. Andrew's a professor of political science at Hunter College. And Andrew, first off, as you're seeing the night unfold right now, if I asked you at 7 o'clock if you'd sign up for this, and I know you're not a Trump fan, do you see the way that the map's playing out? Does it give you comfort or a caution?
It's too early in the evening for me to express confidence or comfort. I think there are a couple of trends that are noteworthy at this point. First, if you look at South Florida and South Texas, it appears that the Democrats have not done particularly well in the Hispanic vote. A couple of reasons why that might be the case. And on the other hand, I think the Democrats are doing, as predicted, quite well in suburban communities, which is why the Democrats are making a real fight of it in Ohio tonight, which is a bit of a surprise, I think. It's quite early to call, and I still cringe at the possibility that we'll be waiting on Pennsylvania, which could be a matter of several days, and enormous court battles about whether to count the votes. That's the nightmare scenario, and so far it's still quite possible that that'll be the case. But the Democrats are running better than 4 years ago right now in Ohio. They're doing pretty well in North Carolina. It's possible that Pennsylvania will be a moot point before the end of the evening. I think that's the best case scenario for the Democrats.
Let me ask you, in the prism of history, can it be exaggerated, the stakes of this election, at least in the past century, in terms of the divergent directions the country could really go, and really the questions about democracy, health of it, limits, checks and balances, et cetera?
The stakes are very, very high. I think there's the real possibility that if the Democrats control both houses of Congress, they can still be an effective check on Donald Trump. And then we'll have 4 years mostly of bluster without a whole lot getting done. I don't expect a Democratic Senate and a Republican Donald Trump president, if that were the outcome tonight, to find much common ground. And I think we'd find government by tweet continuing more than before. If Trump wins and the Republicans control the Senate, that's a much grimmer picture from the Democratic perspective. I don't think Trump's going to go quietly into the night by any stretch of the imagination. Do I really think that this is the end of democracy if Trump wins? Because I think he's more talk than action. He's more bluster than anything else. He likes to govern by tweet. I'm not as concerned, I think, as some people are, that his victory would spell the end of democracy. What it would spell is another 4 years of having him live inside the heads of his opponents, and of greater division in American politics, and people being even more antagonistic towards the opposing party than they are tonight.
So, from your vantage point, if Trump were to get 4 more years, where would you, through the prism of history, given the isolationism, where do you think the public might be surprised, if not on policy, just on our place in the world? How much could change in 4 years?
Well, if you're looking internationally, you should remember that I don't think there's a clear consensus in the United States in favor of continued major international engagement. I think we were moving into a more isolationist phase. And I think even the Democrats under Obama were pulling back from some of the commitments that had been made previously in the period of the Cold War and after the Cold War. So I think we are still fumbling for a new definition of our international role. Trump would take us in one direction, towards greater unilateralism. Biden would be more of an internationalist in terms of moving us back into alliances. But I think Americans in general are eager to see something of a stepping back, especially from military commitments around the world in places like the Middle East. Our alliances under Donald Trump will be further frayed. There will be continued cozying up to dictators. There's one thing I can say with great confidence: if Donald Trump were returned to office, he's not going to change. And what you saw for the last 4 years is what you're going to see for the next 4 years, if not more so.
And finally, the Republican Party. if there's 4 more years of Trump, is it recognizable at all before he ever came on the scene?
It will be Trump's party. There's no question about it. It's not going to be the Republican Party we saw 10 or 15 years ago. Even if Trump loses, I don't see the Republican Party going back in that direction. The Republican Party had, of 2004 and 2010 or 12, has lost a number of its key constituencies. It has lost more educated voters. It seems to have lost suburban voters. And it has banked heavily on less educated, blue-collar, white voters, generally older voters, possibly the party. So that's the face of the Republican Party going forward. It's Trump's populism. If Trump wins, it's Trump populism with Trump. If Trump loses, I think it's Trumpian populism under somebody else. And if Trump loses, I don't think he's going quietly into the night anyway. So he'll still be the force behind the Republican Party. And people running for their nomination the next time around will likely try to out-Trump Trump in many respects. So we are entering a phase in our politics where the Republican Party is going to be a peculiar mix of plutocrats and populists of a certain kind.
Well, Professor, I appreciate it. As they say, we'll know more tonight here, which arc of history we're going to take, but I appreciate a few minutes from you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.